Hey everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Cleo, and no, that is not Cleo spelled like this. It is not Chloe. It is not Cleo. My name is Cleo. Yes, like the car, in case you're European. No, my name does not come from this lovely lady. My name actually comes from this lovely lady. Meet Cleo, Muse of History. Now, why does this matter? This matters because I'm challenging myself in June to a horrible TBR. Let me tell you about it. So in case you didn't know, there are a lot of readathons happening in June, and I've kind of committed myself to participating in 2, maybe 3. I will give you the TBR for 2 of the 3. The third one is the Feelgoodathon, which is hosted by Jess and by Rachel. I will link their channels down below. This is one that takes place in the first 2 weeks. Because of the stress I'm putting myself under with the TBRs for my 2 other readathons, I'm not going to be choosing any separate books for that readathon, so I will be seeing which ones of these can fit in with the Feelgoodathon for me, and I will mainly be participating in terms of the prompts that have to do with self-care. But the 2 main readathons that I will be participating in are the Olympic Games readathon and the Make Your Mythtaker readathon. So I will link the announcement videos for both of these down below for full information. I won't go too much into it because I also don't want this video to be super long. So my name originates from the Muse of History. So the Muses are, they originate from Greek mythology and also exist in Roman mythology. The amount of muses kind of differs from between accounts, and I think also between the 2 mythologies. But Cleo is definitely one of them, and she is the Muse of History. So that means that she celebrates the great acts of history, and that she is an inspiration for basically history telling. So basically for the epic poem as it was at the time of at the time that these myths and these epic stories were originating. But so at some point something must have gone wrong, because I'm now stuck in the body of a mortal 30-year-old woman. So I will be reclaiming my divinity in the month of June. So the Mythtaker readathon is a story creating readathon. So you create a certain character and you kind of form a story around your character throughout the month. So there are different paths that you can take, and you can also deviate from these paths throughout certain prompts, but I will be following mainly the goddess path. I will be doing some other things later on in the month, but I will only tell you about the first 4 prompts, the prompts that will make me back into the goddess that I deserve to be. So I didn't put this pile of books next to me in correct order, so this is going to be fun. Now, before we go fully into all of the prompts and the books that I chose for it, be aware that for the month of June I had set myself the intention to read books that I have recently purchased. And with recently I mean starting from December 2019 up until now. So I made a list of all of those books, and I chose from those books in order to complete these prompts. So from time to time it's a little bit tricking in the sense that for example, a prompt like longest book on my TBR will be the longest book of that list of 19 books. So let's get started. So in order for me to become the goddess that I absolutely deserve to be, the first thing that I need to do is to read a book that focuses around a non-human character. And the book that I chose for that is the Traveling Cat Chronicles by Hiro Arikawa. So I don't know too much about the plot of these books, except that we are following a cat, and that it is set in Japan. As far as I'm aware, it's a cat who's following his master, who's going on a sort of road trip to reconnect with people from his youth. I love Japanese literature. This book had been on my radar already for a time before my mother got it for me for Christmas, and so I'm happy to be getting around to it now. The next prompt that will help me transcend to goddesshood is to read a book with foiled covering. I actually had another one picked out for this, and this was not a recent purchase, but luckily I purchased another one with foiling recently, and that is City of Brass by Chakraborty. It's not that visible, I think. I don't know whether the camera is catching it, but there is some foiling here within the lettering and also here on the edges. It's I think it's real foiling that's on there. I definitely feel some difference in there. But so City of Brass by S.A. Chakraborty is a fantasy novel that is set in Egypt. I don't know too much more about it, but I know that it falls in. But I know that it's set in Cairo and that it centers around jinn and stuff like that. I have had a lifelong obsession with Egypt, and I definitely want to rekindle that interest because I haven't really dived back into Egyptian mythology in the last few years or anything like that, and so I definitely want to go back in there. And so City of Brass to me seems like a perfect way to do it. It's fantasy, which is one of my favorite genres, and it's Egypt, which is one of my favorite cultures. So, City of Brass. Next up, the third prompt is to read the highest rated book on your TBR. And where is it? So when I check Goodreads, the book that comes out on top is Crooked Kingdom by Leigh Bardugo. So I read Six of Crows in April. I liked it. I gave it a 4-star, but I actually think it's probably more like a 3.5 star for me. But I'm interested to see how I will feel about Crooked Kingdom. I know that it's like halfway between some people who feel like Crooked Kingdom is even better and some people who got kind of disappointed by Crooked Kingdom. I do think based on like the evolution of the story that probably Crooked Kingdom is going to be less my cup of tea. But in any case, looking forward to dive into it and to have that kind of ticked off as like one of those major series that most people on BookTube are talking about. I just want to know what I feel about it, whether that is really something for me or not. But so yeah, that is my third prompt. And then the final prompt in order for me to become a goddess is the randomize your TBR. So let the fates decide which TBR, which book on your TBR you're going to read. So obviously here I use a random number generator, but I only used 1 to 19 numbers to represent the books that I have on this list. And the random number generator gave me the number 1, which means I'm getting to read the shortest book on my TBR, and that is Songs of Innocence and Experience by William Blake. So in January, I went to London with a friend of mine, was able to travel before COVID-19 situation happened, and we went to an exhibition in the Tate Britain that was all about William Blake. And I knew William Blake, of course, from when I was doing English literature, when I was studying English literature, but I didn't know that he's also an illustrator, and I thought some of his artwork was really amazing, so I bought like a postcard set of that as well. But so this edition of his Songs of Innocence and Experience has the sort of like original art print that he made for it, and then has the actual text on the other side. So this is going to be relatively short because it's like 60 pages, so that then means that it's like 30 poems or something like that. But I'm interested to dive into this. I do not have a great record with poetry. I do really like Tiger because I had to do a I had to prepare a paper on it and present it at my exam, so I do have experience with that one at least. But yeah, really looking forward to diving a little bit more into poetry and seeing whether maybe I can find my way in it for once. So after these 4 prompts I will have reclaimed my godhood, I will have become the divinity that I deserve to be, I've reclaimed my place within the pantheon. I will be doing some extra prompts for this readathon, but I do not need to declare this TBR in advance, and anything I do declare can be held against me, so I will keep it at the Make Your Mythtaker TBR at those 4 books. Moving on to the Olympic Games TBR. So the Olympic Games TBR is all centered around Mount Olympus and about Greek mythology. And it is actually a Percy Jackson inspired readathon, but the mythology used in the Percy Jackson series is Greek mythology. So these two combine actually really well in my opinion. And because, as I said, I am a Greek muse of history, I also do have a place in the pantheon. My father is actually Zeus, so the god of gods, so I will also be taking part in the Olympic Games readathon, and I will be representing Team Zeus. For Team Zeus, I have a couple of prompts that I need to fulfill, and the first one, I'm going to now really have to check my TBR here. Yeah, the first one that I'm going to be checking out will be A Book with a King, and I will say that I wasn't too happy about that prompt because I had hoped to postpone a little bit longer on this one, and that is King Lear by Shakespeare. Why did I want to postpone? I'm intimidated. I'm very much intimidated. I have not read a lot of Shakespeare. I have had to read a couple of, but I don't think I've ever had to read a complete play. I think we always just like read passages of it, and like the language really confuses me as English is not my native language, and yeah, it's like an older version of English, and like sometimes I'm really not sure what they're trying to say. The book looks relatively long, but like half of it are like notes at the bottom, and then the text is like dialogue, of course. But yeah, so I'm intimidated by this one, but the goal for buying this is that I want to read some more Shakespeare, or at least try to get into Shakespeare a little bit, just because it's such an important part of English literary development. And so yeah, I will be reading this one and then probably also checking out some adaptations afterwards, because the real way to experience a Shakespeare play is by watching it as it is performed. So yeah, hopefully I'll also get around to that. Next up, the idea is to read a book with a tree on the cover. And where is my book with a tree? There you are. So in order for this prompt, I will be reading The Year Without Summer. Is there so much glare on it? Yeah. By Guinevere Glasfurd. This is I thought it was a non-fiction. I don't think it's a non-fiction, but it centers around an event that really took place. So it centers around a year, which is it's 1816, a year in which the ash cloud from a volcanic eruption in Indonesia really resulted in like very dark, grim skies over Europe. And this is actually the year in which Frankenstein was written, or at least in which the idea for Frankenstein was developed. Also, it wasn't just Frankenstein by Mary Shelley, but Mary Shelley was basically entering into sort of competition with Lord Byron and her husband Percy Bysshe Shelley, and then another person who I haven't heard of yet. I think it was a doctor, an Italian doctor, and they kind of made this sort of little contest to see who would write the best sort of like a gloomy story at that time, and that's how where the idea of Frankenstein was created. And I was super intrigued by that whole story, but I definitely want to learn more. So this is an account in which we are going to be looking at different people and the effects that this event had on them. So I'm interested. I don't know too much about what is going to happen in this book. I just know that that real event is at the background of this book, and that really intrigued me, so I want to be getting into this one. Next prompt is to read the longest book on your TBR, for which I will be reading The Kingdom of Copper by Chakraborty. So this is the sequel to City of Brass, so I won't go into it anymore. Basically, I went to the bookstore to buy City of Brass, accidentally bought this one, and then returned back later to buy City of Brass. And then I was like, yeah, I might as well fit it into this prompts like now. And then next up we have a book with a high stakes quest. For that I will be inserting Crooked Kingdom into my TBR. I've already talked about it, but because of the way that book one ends, I feel I can use it for a quest. Basically what happens at that end, they will be trying to reverse it, and that's the quest. And then the final basic prompt for this readathon is to read a popular book, and for that I have chosen The Poppy War by R.F. Kuang. So The Poppy War by R.F. Kuang is very popular. It's quite divisive as well, I have the opinion. I feel like a lot of people love it, a lot of people hate it, but it is a Asian-inspired fantasy book. It is inspired by the Opium Wars in China. As far as I'm aware, there's major trigger warnings that come with this one. As I'm not somebody who needs trigger warnings in my own reading, I don't know the specific trigger warnings, but I would definitely look into it, because as it is inspired by Chinese literature, by Chinese history, and we are talking about that period, I think I know what the event is going to be, and in that case, yes, that is a major trigger warning if I am correct about that. So I love big epic fantasies and I love Asian culture. So when I was 18, I decided I had to choose what I was going to study, and I studied Chinese for a year, and that really got me interested in all things to do with Chinese culture. Of course, I had an interest before, otherwise you don't choose to study Chinese. So I loved like Chinese films, Chinese movies, Japanese movies, so that's what inspired that interest. But it definitely got a very big boost when I was at university. And when I was at university, we also learned about the history of China, but I was in the year that had the modern history, and that's why I think I'm pretty sure about what's going to be happening in this book. But yeah, it is supposed to be a sort of training setting fantasy. So our protagonist, Rin, is one of the top students. She aces the test, nobody apparently was expecting it, and so she is sent to the elite military school. Looking forward to it very much. So these are the final basic prompts for Camp Zeus. Basically you have to complete the basic prompts first, and then if you want you can continue on into the advanced prompts. I haven't figured out all of what I want to do for the advanced prompts. We'll also see whether I actually have the time to get around to the advanced prompts, because as you might have seen, this is going to be a very ambitious TBR. But so my advanced prompts would be Sword and Shield is to read a book with a character that I wouldn't get along with. This is the one that I haven't decided on yet, because I'm finding it difficult to find a book for that one, so let me know down below if you have any suggestions maybe. The next one, I know, I did choose one. So a book with a character that I wouldn't get along with. I've chosen Queenie by Candice, Carty-Williams, and I'm just basically going off of the fact that the main critiques that I've seen about this book mention that she's a very annoying character and that she makes annoying mistakes and annoying decisions. So I'm going to go off of that. So Queenie is a book that has been doing the rounds recently. It is a book by a Caribbean author, I think, and it's basically considered to be sort of a what's the book name called? Bridget Jones' Diary. It's supposed to be sort of Bridget Jones' Diary type of storyline in which our protagonist Queenie is somebody who's trying to get her life in order, but everything seems to be going wrong all of the time. So yeah, very much looking forward to this. Next up we have, let's just check what I still have lying around here. Pegasus Writing. No, not writing. Pegasus Riding. So it is a book published within the last 5 years. I will say some of these definitely fit that prompt, but there is no doubling up, so I had to go for a new one. And I'm going with the Dutch Book Week gift. So in Belgium and the Netherlands we have a book week every year. It took place somewhere in March this year, and if you buy a book that week you get the book week gift along with your book. Later on you can also buy it for a small fee, but I received it with my purchase this week. I guess because of the whole COVID-19 situation they still had a lot of those lying around, and that is Leon and Juliette by Annejet van der Zijl. This book sounds super problematic, I will say, so if it is going to be problematic, I'm going to seriously be disappointed in the fact that they chose that to represent Dutch literature. But this book is set in 1820 in Charleston, and it's about a man who has who buys a female slave, and they become lovers, they become a happy couple. That sounds very problematic to me, but we will see. It is very short. I have heard very bad things about this actually. I've only seen one person comment on the problematic nature of the content. Mainly people are just commenting that it's really bad writing, and I must say that the book week gift isn't the greatest quality. You know, it's a book that you're given for free, so not a whole lot of effort goes into it. Then the next challenge would be the climbing wall. It is to read the next in a series for which I will be reading The Obelisk Gate by N.K. Jemisin. I have been meaning to continue on with the series for a while now. I think I read the first one in March. So I read the 5th season in March, absolutely loved it, want to continue. So the 5th season by N.K. Jemisin is a great fantasy book. It won the Hugo Award. This one also won the Hugo Award, and the 3rd one in the series also won the Hugo Award. This is very exceptional, so it is great boundary breaking fantasy writing. So the Broken Earth trilogy is set it is set on a planet that is basically broken. It is set on a planet that has endured too much from its civilization and that is acting out now. So basically there are these people who have control over the elements, in a sense, not really elements, but they have control, they can tame the powers of the earth, and history telling has it that they at some point went too far and they angered Father Earth, and now Father Earth is lashing out, so at any moment there can be like major eruptions or things like that, or major chasms creating and things like that. And so people are basically struggling to survive on a daily basis. They are struggling against their planet. And so there are these people, as I said, who have powers to help dampen the powers of the earth, but they are looked upon in a very condescending way. They're very much the outcasts in society. They are needed, but they are very much just abused. And this series sets place in that world and looks at at a couple of people that have these powers. It also has polyamory wrapped, so I would definitely recommend it to you if you're looking for that. The 5th season was just amazing. I loved the way that whole narrative voice situation came about, let's say it like that. So I'm definitely looking forward to continue and seeing what more is in store for this series. And then the final one that I have a prompt for, Capture the Flag, your most anticipated read. And for that I will be putting Weather by Jenny Offill. I will say a whole lot of these books could have also fit in with that prompt. So Weather by Jenny Offill is a book that I acquired in March, I think. And it is a book that is also very much doing the rounds within the more like literary fiction focused booktube community. So this book has also already been on the Women's Prize list, and maybe it can get onto the Booker, I don't know yet. But so Weather by Jenny Offill is supposed to be a book about a woman who works in a library, and like part of her job entails that she's constantly like looking for the answers to questions that people are asking her, and so she has a very broad spectrum of knowledge that she's going to be using throughout this book in some way. But it's supposed to be a book that's mainly about climate change, and it's mainly, that's at least what I got out of all other people's reviews for this book. That's the part that stuck with me, that this is going to look into climate change a little bit and give us a very bleak view of our current situation. And then, because it isn't enough for me to put 12 books on my TBR, where I usually just have a pile of possibilities that I have zero obligation to finish, I put another book on there. Yes, I also put The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho on there. In secret, this is actually one of the extended prompts that I will be attempting to do for Make Your Mythtaker. But so The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho is a book that I had to read in high school. It is set in Egypt, and I don't know too much about it anymore. I loved it. It is really one of the few books that I read as a teenager that weren't fantasy novels that I absolutely adored. It is one of the books that I consider as like my journey into general fiction. But I have forgotten everything about this book. I didn't even remember it was set in Egypt. I just knew it had a desert in it at some point. So I definitely want to reread this and see if this one is still a favorite or not. But so yeah, that will be my TBR for June. So it'll be a challenge, I guess, to go back to the TBR. I will say that May has been my greatest reading month of all time, And I'm going to be needing that momentum because all of these books together form a TBR of 4,500 pages. As I said, last month was my greatest month of reading ever, and I read 5,300 pages. So, as I said, that was the best month ever, you know. On average, I'm already happy when I get to 3,000 pages. So I'm quite interested to see what I will do this month. So yeah, let me know down below if you are interested in following my journey into divinity, my journey to reclaim my place alongside my father Zeus in the Greek pantheon. Definitely let me know down below. If you've read any of these books, definitely let me know as well. Wish me luck, because I'm gonna need it. So see you guys, bye!